Now we are going to deploy this developer portal. So we have two components here. Right? The first one is this Gloo Mesh Portal server, which is a backend that provides a well-defined API that's going to be used by the developer portal frontend to know which API to show to which user, basically. So we need first to configure this component and to expose this API provided by this component. So we create a route table for sending requests to this portal server. We see another nice feature of the route table, which you can define a default destination that's going to be used by all the different routes, so that I don't need to again define that many times. And here I say that I want to expose the API through this /v1 path and send, do this basically send to this path for the backend, but expose it through this portal server /v1. But if there is a cookie that is provided by the user, then I want to basically go through this OAuth workflow so that I can extract the information from Redis and so on. So basically, I want to summarize, I want to expose that backend API both securely and publicly, so that if there is a request that's coming from a user who is not authenticated in the portal, it's going to follow this route, and I'm going to show just the public APIs if I want to expose some APIs publicly. And if the user goes through this route, is authenticated, and then I want to show him the API that he should be have access to. So that's basically what this route table is doing. And I now can see that if I send a request to this backend API, I can see an error that tells me that there is no portal config created. So I'm going to create this portal object that define the portal backend I want to use, which is the one I have just shown before. I define the usage plan, the way I want them to be displayed to my end user, and which APIs I want to expose, which are my route table, right? So it's kind of the API product. So I want to expose my API that is composed of the open library .org and the product page API stitched together. So that's my portal object. And now again I can basically just send the same request I sent before, and in that case you see I am not authenticated, so I don't see any API return, right? It's just like there is no public API. I didn't configure any of these APIs to be public, so that's normal that if I send a request to this backend server without authentication, I get like no result. So now I'm going to create what we call a portal group. So we define some users and which access they have to. So here I'm going to say if a user is authenticated with the OIDC workflow, and then we get this JOT token with a value, a name key, a group, and a value users, then I want to provide access to this user to the portal, to the API that have this portal users equal true, and I want to assign this usage plan gold. So I'm just like creating this, and you will see that I will authenticate later with a user that's called user1 that is part of this users group. So you will have access to this API that we created before because we had these labels in it, and we have access to this usage plan. So what I need to do now is to deploy the front end. So the front end is provided as a Node.js application, as a template that you can fully customize. So you can go to, in fact I already cloned it here, so you can see here if I open that link. You can see like it's a public repo, and you can fully customize this portal. So in my case, I already downloaded it, so I don't need to do anything. You can also access it with npx, so you have like other ways to download it and to get access to it. You can customize that with a special logo and do many other things, and you can then build it, right? So here I just like create a Docker image for it, and I'm going to push it to this local registry, right? But obviously in your case you are probably not going to use like a local registry. You have your public registry. You see everything is very fast because I already compiled it, and then I'm going to deploy this application just as a standard Kubernetes deployment here in my Kubernetes cluster, and I'm going to even deploy it in the Gloo Mesh add-ons, but it could really be deployed anywhere, right? So if I go to my pods, get pods, I can see here this front end is being initialized, and I can now expose this front end, right? So again, using a root table, you start to be really used to that. So we define different paths, and we define which one we want to authenticate the user. So if the users click on the login button, then I want to send a request to the portal front end, but I want to have authentication with OIDC. Otherwise, I just like don't need to authenticate the request. So I apply this root table, and now I should be able to go to the main /here and should be redirected to this developer portal that I just deployed, and I can see that right now I don't have like any APIs that are public, right? So I cannot see any API, and I can also see that right now we use this secrets that we need to use the secret for applying the OAuth workflow, because we also want to secure. You remember here I said if the request go to this path for the login, so if the user click on the login button, I want to make sure it's going to be authenticated. That's why I added this OAuth equal true. So I'm going to configure the OIDC workflow for the front end. So if you've already watched the video where I explain how to do that for HTTP bin, it's following exactly the same principle, applying that to this route with OAuth equal true, and defining the different parameters for key cloak, so that I can secure the access here, and creating the X.dot server. Again, I have just one in this cluster, which is the most common pattern. And now I have X.dot policy enforced. I should be able to access the portal securely. So if I click on the login button, I am redirected automatically to Keycloak, and I can see that here I can sign in, and I can now access my API, and I can see this API because I am authenticated successfully, and I can see I have access to this book info API.